1. Decision. Resolve now that you will not be poor. The second law of wealth. The greatest of evils and the worst of crimes is poverty. Our first duty, a duty to which every other consideration should be sacrificed, is not to be poor. George Bernard Shaw. The wealth choice began years ago as scribbles on scraps of paper before morphing into a PowerPoint lecture that I used in an MBA class. From there, with the help of U.S. Census Bureau, Federal Reserve, and U.S. Trust survey data, I developed a one-page questionnaire for my survey participants. I tried to make the pool of respondents as authoritative, comprehensive, and objective as humanly possible, given the constantly shifting ground beneath the data. I do recognize, however, that no matter how rigorous the research, any respondent list is but a snapshot in time. My goal was to move beyond anecdotes of crucial career events and wise money moves and highlight the underlying factors that spell financial success. What emerged was a surprising set of habits and disciplines from a diverse body of people. At this point, I had the material collated by industry, gender, and net worth. This project eventually grew into bound pages of notes that begged for empirical qualitative analyses. Based on an 18-page, 118-question survey as well as crates of data, endless coding, personal interviews, and focus groups, I was able to piece together a composite picture of Black America's wealthiest, the top 1% of wage earners, that flies in the face of conventional wisdom. To keep the search moving, I cast a broad net, combing the country for Black men and women who had attained millionaire status. Since the goal of this research was to secure at least 1,000 responses, a significant statistical representation, I collected names and data from many sources and utilized a network of professional associations and organizations. Individual surveys were confidential, held in complete anonymity, and reported in aggregate form only. Respondents did not sign the survey. In short, there was little need for me to know any proprietary information. Although the eventual choice of respondents was a decidedly statistical objective call, in order to remain true to the core data, I decided early on to omit athletes, celebrities, and entertainers, a subject that I will address in full detail later. I felt that if I were to crack the code on Black millionaireship, it would be best to focus on those participants whose wealth wasn't fleeting or temporary. This book is not about conspicuous consumption or high-tech bling. Instead, I chose to focus on the types of personal choices and decisions that are informed and driven by specific values. When all was said and done, the project required not only 7 years of random face-to-face interviewing, crunching numbers, and countless computer runs, but ongoing field research and the subsequent write-up as well. Clearly, I had touched a nerve. It turns out that respondents, even high-net-worth candidates, those with an excess of $5 million, wanted to think about, learn about, and talk about what this group of men and women know that others do not. I spoke directly with 3 of Black America's 5 billionaires and darn near 500 millionaires, not to mention their handlers. My ultimate objective is to highlight how you, the listener, can create your own fortune. It would be of little to no use to discover that your relationship with your parents or your childhood experiences failed to match some standard millionaire's profile. More important are the segments of the equation you can control, namely the habits and strategies that you can emulate. To this end, the final chapter offers a chance for a bit of self-assessment. Armed with the knowledge that self-made millionaires display a tendency towards certain character traits and adhere to the laws of wealth, you can strive to correct any shortcomings and strengthen those traits within your own personality. What distinguishes the haves from the have-nots are not key connections, superior intelligence, or wealthy parents, although those advantages seldom hurt, but rather the 9 disciplines discussed in this audiobook. The affluent African American is not the son or daughter of the boss, nor is he or she likely to feature an IQ in the 99th percentile. The vast majority of Black millionaires profiled in this study began their careers like most others, with a solid education, tons of ambition, and precious little relevant experience. Like accumulating compound interest, these men and women achieved financial success slowly and consistently. The story of how black men and women became millionaires and how that event influenced their lives takes nothing away from the mystery that surrounds the rich. But it does offer a lesson. These individuals did not necessarily set out to achieve material success. They just worked hard in a field in which they could apply their talents and gifts. Before they knew it, they were standing in a pool of liquid gold. Or, as one respondent shared, "I've heard that money changes you. That's why, though I am grateful for the blessings of wealth, it hasn't changed who I am. My feet are still on the ground. I'm just wearing better shoes." Profile of the affluent African American. As the Wealth Choice reflects, I discovered the inner workings of Black America's most affluent, as well as the habits and attitude of those who joined the Millionaires Club. For example, did you know the average black millionaire is a 52-year-old male, nearly 12%, and growing female, born in the Northeast and Midwest, the majority raised in a home where both parents were present. More often than not, their mother was a housewife. Average net worth, $4 million. Average income of parents, $10,000 to $20,000 per year. Married 15 to 20 years. Children, 2+. College degree, approximately 69%. SAT score, greater than 1,000. Earlier version. College GPA, male 2.9, female 3.4. Major, 52% business majors, 20% MBA. Daily routine, rise 5:30 a.m., retire by 11 p.m. Exercise, 3.5 hours per week. Golf and tennis most popular with men, and golf, tennis, aerobics, yoga, and gardening most popular with women. Cars, 4+. Mercedes or Lexus, General Motors or Ford. Church habits. Attendance, twice per week at churches with fewer than 2,500 members. Donations. Women tithe. Men give 10 to 15% of their earnings to charity. How they made their money? 90% entrepreneurship, 30% real estate. Smartest money move? Diversifying my portfolio, 31%. Buying a home, 26%. Investment strategy, stocks, mutual funds. Earn it, grow it, give it away. Best way to get rich? Start a business, 30%. Savings plan, 10 to 20% of income. Average credit card debt, $2,500. Appraised value of home, $200,000 to $299,000. Average debt, not including mortgage, less than $10,000. Definition of success: ability to effect change and the capacity to enjoy their work. What money means to them: freedom and security. Most important public policy issue facing Black America: economic development and education. Golden rule to Black millionaireship: earn 6 figures, $100,000 or more by age 30. To say the least, this was a far cry from what I expected to hear concerning the creation of wealth and success. And now, in city after city, in hotel suites and meeting halls across the country, over soft drinks, cocktails, and coffee, I was finally given full access, the opportunity to discover the keys to financial success. In short, the $1 million secret that unfortunately has eluded mine and previous generations. I had been given the chance to hear the answers to a host of questions that I had asked over the course of my adult life, answers that I am more than willing to share with a waiting audience. To quote the American novelist and journalist Ernest Hemingway, when friend and fellow writer F. Scott Fitzgerald observed that the rich are different from you and me, yes, they have more money. And here lies the heart of the issue. What is the difference between you, the listener, and Victor McFarlane, the California-based real estate developer who currently boasts a net worth in excess of $300 million? Between you and Oprah Winfrey? Between you and Lisa Price, the famed female entrepreneur who launched Carol's Daughter? Or between you and Damon John of FUBU, Dave Stewart of Worldwide Technology, Sheila Johnson-Lee, the team president and managing partner of the WNBA Washington Mystics and the first woman to manage 3 different sports franchises, or the hundreds of black millionaires surveyed for this book. Why do some people generate wealth while others face a life of financial struggle? Is the difference found in their education, intelligence, skills, work habits, contacts, luck, or vocation? So who are these wealth creators and what do they stand for? They believe in hard work, and they invest in themselves and constantly work towards self-improvement. They are more likely to place emphasis on receiving financial gain from their work and do not allow failure to deter them. And they don't waste their hard-earned money on the indulgences of the very rich. Rather, they live and spend according to middle-class values. These are individuals who are driven by an unwavering aim, who cut their way through the opposition and forge to the front, who, in this information age, where everything is push or be pushed, dare to hold their ground and push hard. What are stumbling blocks to the poor and defeated are but stepping stones to the strong and determined. Poverty and humble birth do not bar the progress of men and women with the grit to seize their chance. For those who believe that millionaire status isn't what it used to be, I suggest that you speak to the 35,000 black millionaires, an all-time high, who boasted a net worth of $1 million or more in 2009, excluding the value of their primary residence. Well, that's what I've done. I asked not all 35,000, but a representative sample. Enough to realize that both Hemingway and Fitzgerald were correct in their assessment in more ways than one. If I learned anything over the course of my 7-year study, I've discovered that despite our enduring fascination with those we classify as rich or high net worth, most of us misunderstand wealth. We mistake the trappings of money for genuine affluence. In a culture that encourages living above your means, black millionaires work extremely hard, save their money, hold dear to their values, and plow their profits back into their business and/or vocation. In a nutshell, that's why they're millionaires. Needless to say, this image runs counter to how the masses view the well-to-do. More than intellect, education, or luck, discipline is the key to joining the ranks of this elite class. Let's talk about money again. Without considering temporary setbacks and extraordinary fortunes of inheritance or luck, if you wish to know how average individuals feel about themselves, look at their bank accounts. Money, or lack thereof, is the greatest measurement of your mindset. The age-old maxim that water seeks its own level also applies to income. Money will meet you where you are. Or, stated another way, your net worth will equal your self-worth. More than just a clever quip, the statement is a wise truth and a stark reality for some. Money is neither good nor bad. It is only a resource. Money is the instrument of exchange for valued production and is earned only by the producer. The accumulation of wealth is accomplished only by consistent applied effort and discipline. Money possesses an energy of its own, and it is largely attracted to those who understand its value and respect its power. Although there are exceptions to every rule, money tends to flow to those individuals who can use it in the most effective and productive manner and who can invest it to create opportunities that will benefit others. It takes money to acquire food, shelter, and clothing. It takes money to build schools, churches, and institutions. It takes money to purchase cars, homes, and education, as well as all of life's magical moments. Money is not acquired, as many believe, by fortunate speculation or foolhardy enterprises, but by the daily practice of faith, family, and hard work. Those who rely on these values will rarely be destitute, and those who succumb to the thoughts of lack and limit will generally be broke. At some point in time, as this study points out, the wealthy break away from the crowd and ignore conventional wisdom to journey into the unknown armed only with their creative imagination and courage of conviction. Optimism, curiosity, creativity, and drive are universal qualities found in the profile of the average millionaire. Most in this study did not begin in pursuit of fame and fortune. They focused on solving a problem or by pouring themselves into the task at hand. Whether churchgoers or not, Black millionaires emerged from a culture shaped by spiritual values. The optimism and trust, the commitment and faith, the discipline and altruism that their lives reveal and their words require can flourish only in the midst of a moral order with spiritual foundations. Over the course of 7 years, I have found the Black wealthy to be constant learners and calculated risk-takers, unafraid to attempt new ideas, even at the risk of appearing foolish to their peers. Their financial windfall is the byproduct of these qualities. When money flows freely and circulates, it blesses humanity. But when hoarding, squandering, or abuse interrupts the circulation, money becomes a curse. In itself, money does not increase the personal merit of its possessor. It is not a sign so much as a test of real worth. It constitutes opportunity and means for either virtue or vice. Its faithful use or foolish abuse determines the owner's character. The master key to wealth. If you asked the average person what it takes to become a millionaire, he or she would probably cite a number of predictable factors. Topping the list would be intelligence, inheritance, contacts, hard work, ambition, persistence, and luck, to name a few. It may be difficult to dislodge this misguided belief, but my study of Black millionaires reveals a critical skill that so many were forced to master prior to earning their millions. The listed qualities can and eventually may play a role, but none is the sole source of wealth accumulation. Consider the following profiles. Compare each and observe how these men and women are united by a single common cord, the Golden Rule. Consider the words and deeds of Madam C.J. Walker, America's first Black female millionaire. Walker's accomplishments as an inventor, entrepreneur, and philanthropist are nothing short of amazing, considering the time in which she lived and the short stack she was dealt. Born 4 years after the abolition of slavery, she was orphaned, married, and widowed by age 20. She also suffered from a scalp condition that caused hair loss. In the early 1900s, she began testing various homemade cures, and by 1905 she had developed a revolutionary hair care system aimed specifically at Black women. And with that, this visionary blazed a new trail for Black women. Not only did she offer products designed for women of color during a time when the rest of the market ignored this segment, she opened the door for a small army of women, known as Walker agents, to earn additional income pitching her products door to door. As the business grew, she embraced vertical integration, manufacturing the treatments in her own plants and selling them in company-owned beauty shops. Soon she and her sales force were nationwide. A Black Enterprise feature article on this skilled entrepreneur also highlighted her shrewd real estate investments. Walker owned properties in Chicago, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, St. Louis, and New York, including an apartment building overlooking Central Park. Her crown jewel, however, was Villa Lewaro, a $250,000 20-room Georgian mansion on New York's Hudson River. True to her principles of Black empowerment, she hired a Black architect to design her elegant estate, which was located in the same community as those of the Rockefellers, Tiffany's, and Vanderbilts. With her million-dollar fortune, a rarity for her race and gender, Walker gave as lavishly as she lived. There is no royal flower-strewn path to success, this entrepreneurial wizard admonished. And if there is, I have yet to find it. For if I have accomplished anything, it is because I have been willing to work hard. I was raised at a time when everybody had something to do, and they did it. Don't sit down and wait for opportunities to come. Get up and make them. When traveling across this vast continent, people are often impressed by the immense unutilized wealth contained in its unmined mountains, in its millions of acres of rich, uncultivated soil, in its dense forests of heroic proportions, replete with every variety of timber and wood, and in its mighty waterfalls, resources as far as the eye can see and beyond the ability of human thought to estimate. But what of the incalculable amount of human faculty, of unused ability, of undeveloped mental power within the countless souls who are using only a fraction of their limitless possibilities? There are no wastelands except to the blind, no useless resources to those who know how to utilize them. The future never takes care of itself. It is taken care of, shaped, molded, and colored by the present. Our todays are what our yesterdays made them. Our tomorrows must be inevitably the product of our todays. Those who neglect opportunity and shirk responsibility do so at the peril of any possible financial attainment or advancement. So, throw away your money, if you will. Waste, if you must, your possessions, your homes, or your resources, but never discard opportunity. No power, no force in the universe can restore to you its value or the possibilities for growth and accomplishment contained within. There are no longer any chances for my generation, complained an inner-city youth to Johnny Barfield. The grandson of Alabama sharecroppers, Barfield graduated from Princeton University before entering Harvard Law School and built his high-tech personnel firm with a string of blue-chip clients. But it was by his father's side that he would master his greatest lesson. It was Barfield's father who launched the family business. In 1954, John Barfield went north to Detroit from Alabama and created a cleaning venture with his wife. At a time and place when African Americans were given no quarter and fewer breaks, the hard-working Barfields saw their little enterprise grow. In 1969, the elder Barfield sold his cleaning business to the ITT Corporation for an undisclosed amount and assumed his place in the Motor City as a respected entrepreneur with strong ties in both the black and white communities. 12 years later, with the company's revenue surpassing more than $4 million, the younger Barfield took the post of president while his father served as chairman. No chance? No opportunities? Questioned Barfield's father. Here is a man who made his mark, although the world seemingly turned a cold shoulder. How quick we forget. In a land where a fatherless black boy has become president of the most powerful country on the face of the earth, too many of us have forgotten that the key to success has been given to the weakest as well as the strongest. There's no need to search for opportunity. It's everywhere. And each day more opportunities are being created. There's always work to be done, value to be created. The most common mistake we make is looking outside of ourselves for what we can only find within. Wealth is no exception. It is a sorry day for our youth who cannot see opportunities where they stand. Like Paul during his darkest hour, they need only to unlock the door. How one man found and used the key. With neither capital nor influence, it is not an easy task to accrue great wealth in any undertaking that those around you believe to be both foolish and fleeting. But fortunately for the cause of human progress, there are brave spirits with determination and mettle enough to stand their ground and push even when the world opposes. There are no more interesting pages in biography than those that record how Berry Gordy Jr. took his first steps toward prosperity. Without his insight, there would be no Baby Love, no My Guy, no Let's Get It On, and no Billie Jean. Moreover, there would be no Temptations, no Diana Ross, no Marvin Gaye, no Stevie Wonder, no Gladys Knight, no Lionel Richie, and no Michael Jackson. Gordy opened a path into the white mainstream for black musicians and demolished the notion that black popular music was a passing fad. His ability to reach across the racial divide with a unique sound that would touch all people made him a historically significant figure. Never before had an independent record label like Motown produced so many hits with artists who walked in unknown and walked out stars. Armed with a dream and a $700 loan, Gordy proceeded to build the most successful independent label of the 1960s. Born during the Depression and reared in Detroit, he has been described as brilliant, charismatic, a genius, and highly driven. At the age of 5, Gordy, the seventh of 8 children, took classical piano lessons from his uncle. As a teenager and young adult, he worked in his father's small construction company, sold cookware, and applied and trimmed chrome on the assembly line at the Ford Motor Company. After a stint in the Army, Gordy returned to Detroit and launched his first venture, a record store, his initial foray into the world of music. Though the business failed, it made him want to be part of the industry even more. Gordy's big break came in the 1950s, when he began writing songs for local rhythm and blues acts, acquiring a reputation as a songwriter and producer. It was against this backdrop that Gordy met an aspiring artist named William "Smokey" Robinson, who created a group aptly named The Miracles. Gordy soon became their manager, and together he and Robinson forged a creative partnership and produced a number of hits. With the success of The Miracles, a stream of young, talented, aspiring artists found their way to Gordy's doorstep. Soon Marvin Gaye, The Temptations, The Supremes, Martha Reeves, Stevie Wonder, and the Four Tops created the foundation of what would become the Motown sound. An effective and efficient manager, Gordy created a competitive environment where every artist and group contended and vied with each other. The result of this strategy propelled the Motown label up the charts. The Motown sound had its roots in rhythm and blues, but it was Gordy's plan to appeal to listeners of all races and backgrounds. The label's tagline, "The Sound of America," reflected the founder's desire to achieve widespread popularity. Gordy's move of his base of operations to Los Angeles in 1972 marked the end of an amazing era, though the Motown label continued to flourish. Nonetheless, the music created during those golden years sounds as fresh and energetic as it did the day it was produced. Gordy and his fellow wealth creators are the real achievers of our society. Their courage, determination, and belief in themselves to pursue their dream and overcome obstacles cannot be overestimated. The greatest among us are those who revolutionize business, open opportunities for others, and change and challenge the way we think and live. Their impact is felt for generations. The lessons we deduce from their ingenuity, spirit, and courage are invaluable. If people are to achieve their financial goals, they must stand erect in spite of difficulties while others bow and tremble in fear. "There's nothing magical regarding my success," Gordy stated during an award ceremony. "I refuse to give up or give in. In short, don't judge yourself by others' standards. Develop your own. Don't get caught up in the trap of changing yourself to fit the world. The world has to change to fit you. We stuck to who we were at Motown, and the world eventually came around." The power of a single purpose. There is no grander sight than the man or woman who is committed to a single purpose, one aim. It is a divine purpose that gives meaning to life. It unifies all powers, binds them together, makes strong and united what was weak, separated and scattered. To be financially successful is to identify your mission and pursue it, to find your place and fill it. Individuals driven by an unwavering aim are bound to win. The world stands aside and allows them to pass. Defeat only gives them new power. Opposition only redoubles their efforts. Danger only increases their daring. Regardless of what may come, sickness, poverty, or disaster, they never turn their eyes from their objectives. Even Christ knew that a single idea rules life best when he taught, "No man can serve two masters." It was this one critical skill that brought Tyler Perry, the director, playwright, and actor, back from the brink. Scoffed and ridiculed, and with little industry experience, Perry felt the dream that beat in his chest and stood his ground. The words "Hollywood producer" were engraved on his heart, and he would sacrifice his reputation, possessions, resources, past friendships, or even life itself if need be. This entertainment mogul has built a maverick media company by transforming urban theater into mainstream movies and television shows. Nearly 5 years ago, Perry started Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta, one of the first movie studios in the United States owned by an African American. His first two films, Diary of a Mad Black Woman, 2005, and Medea's Family Reunion, 2006, were produced with Lionsgate Entertainment for a total of only $11 million. Surprisingly, each movie opened at number 1, and they earned more than $110 million combined, stunning an industry known for narrow profit margins. His third feature, Daddy's Little Girls, opened to similar appeal and receipts. Since 1998, his touring stage plays have made more than $150 million. Perry even captured first place on the New York Times nonfiction bestseller list with the publication of Don't Make a Black Woman Take Off Her Earrings, Medea's uninhibited commentaries on love and life, written in the voice of Medea, the boisterous grandmother he has portrayed in his films and many of his plays. Amazingly, Perry has maintained ownership of all his work. In a business where it is commonplace to use OPM, other people's money, he has used his own to build a library of substantial and growing value. But perhaps his most surprising feat happened on the small screen. In 2007, in a deal ultimately valued in excess of $200 million and based on the success of a 10-episode test run, the Turner Broadcasting Station, TBS, bought 100 episodes of Perry's half-hour sitcom, House of Pain. Perry was able to avoid the entire standard sitcom route, selling a show to a network, airing a new episode every week, and hoping to stay on television long enough to go into syndication. He put up $5 million to produce the test episodes, maintained creative control, and when TBS and others showed interest, landed an incredibly lucrative deal that would allow him to air his show 5 nights a week, something unheard of in the world of sitcoms. The son of a carpenter, Perry grew up poor. As he told me and an invitation-only audience at Atlanta, Georgia Fox's Theater, his father worked his entire life, paying $116 a month for 30 years for a tiny house in a tough section of New Orleans. Witnessing his father pay a mortgage on the cramped space he shared with his wife and 4 children, while others sold the houses he built for far more than the elder Perry had earned, at a young age, Perry vowed that entrepreneurship held the key to his future and that he would be the owner. The key to longevity and building generational wealth, a principle he hopes other African Americans will embrace, is ownership of the finished product. But there were challenges. His father's hammer and saw gave way to alcohol and guilt before he took his frustrations out on his son. This abusive environment left Perry confused, angry, and without anyone to lean on. Where I come from, he continued, you can have your dream, but you've got to keep it private because others will try their best to suppress it and snuff it out. That was the mentality of my surroundings. Not knowing which way to turn, a friend suggested that he accompany him on a trip to Atlanta. This engaging southern city offered Perry the one quality he needed most: hope. The city's prominent black middle and upper class raised Perry's level of vision. This was the environment that he sought. After my first visit, I just knew I was in the promised land. I had never seen so many black people doing so well. I felt as if I were home. Finally in his element, Perry returned to New Orleans, packed his bags, and moved to Georgia in 1990. He was 21 years old. Seeking a fresh start, Perry began chronicling the events in his life. 2 years later, and again with the encouragement of friends and $12,000, every dime to his name, those writings became his first stage play, I Know I've Been Changed. Full of hope that he had finally turned the corner, Perry was devastated and broke when only 30 people attended the show. This setback marked a 6-year period in which he moved from one job to the next, from bill collector to used car salesman, among others, barely keeping his head above water and saving enough to stage 1 play each year, all of which failed. Finally, having been evicted from his apartment, he hawked his furniture to eat and was living in his car. By 1998, Perry was prepared to throw in the towel. But first he decided to stage one final show at Atlanta's House of Blues, the centerpiece of the city's theater district. However, this time his approach was different. He selected choir members and pastors from the city's most well-known black churches as his cast members. On a freezing opening night, with little to no heat in the theater and fearing that he had wasted his life, Perry looked out the window and saw a line stretching around the corner. He sold out 8 nights at the House of Blues and another 2 at the 4,500-seat Fox Theater. he realized that he had found his audience. Perry's media empire features 6 million Facebook followers and more than $1 billion in sales through his movies, sitcoms, plays, publications, and DVDs. Wealthy men and women have found no easy road to prosperity. It takes courage to look beyond obstacles, to see the way over difficulties, to brave opposition, and to allow nothing to swerve you from your course. Millionaires know that you cannot keep determined souls from reaching their objectives. Place stumbling blocks on their paths, and they will transform those obstacles into stepping stones that they will use to reach their financial goals. Limit their financial resources, and they will turn a dime into a dollar. Ridicule or abuse them, and they will remain firm, as Tyler Perry did before becoming the highest-paid African-American film producer. It was in this manner that he moved his economic prospects from homeless to hopeful. There is something about devotion to an inward vision, the intense desire and concentrated effort to fulfill what you believe to be your mission on earth. If it is riches that you seek, you will find critics and pessimists at every turn who will forecast your failure. These experts will point out that you can never build a business without sufficient capital in these times of intense competition. Moreover, you will encounter obstacles at every turn. Wealth attainment demands a stiff backbone as well as plenty of grit to keep you pushing toward your goal. Nothing else will win the day. Look at Toni Morrison. From birth, the odds were stacked against her. The child of a scorned and branded race, without resources, privilege, or connections, she triumphed over all by winning honors with her literary skill and scholarship. With what delight we read Morrison's Beloved, perhaps the most powerful depiction of the slave experience that ever came from an American pen. A fellow writer has said that, if there were any doubts about Morrison's stature as a preeminent American novelist of her own or any other generation, Beloved will put them to rest. But the notebooks of this demure and reserved mere mortal reveal the secret to her wealth and genius. For nearly 20 years she pressed on, unrecognized and unknown. Every page captures that persistence, patience, toil, and faith. Nothing was too trivial to be condensed in her notes. Everything she felt, heard, or saw was duly preserved in her journal and compelled to pay tribute in her fiction. Morrison's Pulitzer Prize in 1988 for her fifth novel and the Nobel Prize for Literature 5 years later brought her the national recognition many critics and readers believed were long overdue. She had earned the slot of first black woman ever to win the field's highest honor, and she attracted millions, in readers and earnings, in the process. It can be debated whether Clarence Otis would be the chief executive officer of Darden Restaurants and one of the few African Americans who occupy the C-suite in corporate America had it not been for the vision and foresight of his father. A janitor as well as a high school dropout with only a 10th grade education, Otis's father may have been short on academics, but he was long on wisdom. His routine Sunday drives through the affluent neighborhoods surrounding Beverly Hills were a far cry from his family's impoverished South Central Los Angeles home. As he had hoped, his son took his father's lessons to heart, soaking in the palatial mansions with the exquisite manicured lawns. This was his father's way of pointing out to his son that another world existed, a world where wealth and power ruled the day, and a world that was not beyond his reach. During a Darden sales retreat in Puerto Rico, Otis shared that on paper his family would probably be labeled poor. But in the context in which we lived, he continued, my parents were really high achievers. They had the ambition and drive to dream boldly, even in the shadow of doubt. As a child, Otis found an escape from the racial strife and isolation of the 1960s in his local library. Like clockwork, each week he would check out and absorb dozens of books on a variety of subjects. By 9th grade, he had read nearly every novel and biography his neighborhood branch had to offer. Encouraged by a high school guidance counselor, Otis earned a scholarship to Williams College that placed him physically, if not financially, in the land of wealth, power, and prestige. After graduating Phi Beta Kappa, Stanford Law School waited in the wings before he landed on Wall Street with First Boston, serving as vice president in the public finance department. In 1995, a headhunter recommended him to Darden, which had just branched out from General Mills. Otis signed on as vice president and treasurer, attracted to a company positioned for growth. Leaning on his strong leadership skills as well as a tireless work ethic, in less than a decade, he became the 7th African American to lead a Fortune 500 company. After decades of painfully slow progress, black executives have begun to wield power within the halls of corporate America. Today, the upper echelons of Fortune 500 America include men and women such as American Express CEO Ken Chenault, Ursula Burns of Xerox, A. Barry Rand, CEO of AARP, and Donald Thompson, President and Chief Executive Officer of McDonald's. These men and women stand in unanimous agreement. The marketplace does not demand that you master the world of enterprise, that you become a successful businessman, entrepreneur, or merchant. It does not dictate what you shall do, but it does require that you master whatever field you enter. Hold true to this counsel, and not only will the world applaud your efforts, all doors will open to you. Be greater than your calling. Go to the bottom of your business if you would climb to the top. Nothing is too small. Master every detail. Performing world-class work is a central part of life. Do you hope to become wealthy in a single generation? If so, like those before, you will be required to nurture the faith, fortitude, and creativity when your hour arrives. Before you can become a millionaire, you must learn to think like one. The greatest skill. Have you found it? What is the greatest skill a millionaire can possess? Is it intelligence, knowledge, or what the world calls smarts? What about IQ? Surely you've heard the phrase, knowledge is power. Have you considered hard work, persistence, talent, faith, courage, tenacity, attitude, or personal contacts? And what about that ever so fickle, evasive occurrence we call luck? Where does a life of abundance, wealth, and prosperity begin? In the mind, the body, the heart, or the soul? Perhaps I can offer a clue. I find it amazing how the world makes way for those ambitious men and women who possess and utilize their God-given gifts. Nothing or no one can defeat them. Poverty cannot dishearten them, misfortune can't deter them, and hardship won't stifle them. Come what may, those armed with this power to create wealth simply fix their eye on their goal, to live a life of true abundance, and press ahead. For all we know about balance sheets, income statements, and cash flow accounting, for all of our understanding about marketing strategies, tactics, and techniques, and for everything we have learned about management principles and practices, there remains something essential yet mysterious at the core of entrepreneurship. It is so mysterious that we cannot see it or touch it, yet feel it and know it exists. It cannot be mined, manufactured, or bought, yet it can be discovered. Its source is invisible, yet its results are tangible and measurable. This mysterious core is so powerful that it can make the remarkable appear ordinary, so contagious that it can spread like wildfire from one to another in an organization, and so persuasive that it can transform doubt and uncertainty into conviction. This quality burns all bridges behind it, clears all obstacles before it, and arrives at its destination no matter how long it may take, regardless of the sacrifice or cost. At this moment, there are literally thousands, no millions, of wealthy men and women in all lines of work who are where they are today because they've tapped into this life-changing force. When I first glimpsed this power, it was an enormous help to me. It led me to decide, once and for all, how to reach and exceed my financial goals. It unified my thinking and provided me with a straight, clear path to my objectives and aspirations. I have sat in richly paneled, thickly carpeted executive offices before highly celebrated business leaders, some of whom were old enough to be my parents, and listened as each shared how this power altered the course of their lives. After they fully digested this miraculous force, These men and women possessed a unique knowledge that enabled them to turn thoughts into things, dreams into reality. So-called fate or exterior circumstances were no longer in command. Those who had been passengers on a ship to nowhere, tossed between the rocks and reefs on which so many flounder, were suddenly, as the 19th century English poet William Ernest Henley suggested, masters of their fate and captains of their soul. When those who were profiled in this study took hold of this persistent power, they were born anew. Doubts, fears, apathy, and indifference that had dogged their steps in the past vanished in the blink of an eye. As aptly pointed out by the 19th century writer Orison Swett Marden, all of their slumbering faculties had awakened to activity. Truth be told, if you examine your own circle of friends or acquaintances, you can point to one or more who have had no greater opportunity than you and who appear to possess no more, perhaps less, ability, yet who are achieving far greater success. Search diligently and you will discover that these wealth creators have acquired the habit of implementing this God-given force. Far from working harder, they work smarter and with greater ease by virtue of this secret. Each of us should look on our true self, the potential to generate abundance, as artists envision their masterpiece, as a vision of their personal best, on which they focus with infinite pride and the satisfaction that nothing else can provide. Yet many fail to do so. When used constructively, this powerful weapon will plant you firmly in the world of prosperity. Conversely, when mishandled or, worse, not unleashed at all, your negligence may undermine all chances of wealth. Poverty and failure are self-invited more times than we care to admit. The hardship that far too many dread arrives right on schedule. Trust me, if you interview the great legions of failures, those who've neglected to set specific goals or take full advantage of their potential as well as the opportunities this prosperous country presents, you will find the same sad story. Yes, IQ, intelligence, and knowledge matter, but it has been said that the world is a great university. From the cradle to the grave, we live and learn in God's eternal kindergarten, where everything and everyone is our instructor. Who can estimate the value of books that spur our ambition and awaken slumbering possibilities? Some of us are constantly in school, continually storing up and retaining precious bits of information. Every experience offers a lesson for the eye that can see and the mind that can appropriate. Haven't we been instructed, "In all thy getting, gain understanding"? Hasn't it been written that the Creator sends experience to paint humanity's portraits? You and I were created for growth and development and to reach our full potential. It is the object, the essence of our being. To possess an ambition to expand larger and more broadly each day, to push the horizon of ignorance a little further away, to become a bit richer in knowledge, a tad wiser, and more of what we were created to be, that is our worthwhile objective. The daily habit of absorbing information to be used later in life, the reading of books that will inspire and stimulate to greater endeavor, the constant effort of engaging self-improvement is the best type of capital, worth far more than any bank account. This act alone can lead to great mental wealth, wisdom beyond all material riches. It is neither necessary nor desirable that a formal education be crowded into only a few years of life. Education is not an end, but a process. The best educated are those who are always learning, forever absorbing information from every possible source and at every opportunity. It's true, millionaires are exceptional learners. They learn from everything and everybody. They learn from experience. They learn by doing. They learn from past mistakes as well as the mistakes of others. They learn from associates. They learn from what works and, more important, from what doesn't. The millionaires in this study focus on personal growth. To underscore, approximately 34% of respondents either attended graduate school or hold a graduate degree. Conversely, only 4 in a pool of nearly 1,000 respondents failed to receive their high school diploma. Millionaires believe that in order to earn more, they must learn more. They view personal growth as the main objective of a life worth living. In their eyes, knowledge is a seed, and it takes time for seeds to develop into plants that bear fruit. They continually search for ways of thinking and acting that can be more fulfilling, not only in their lives, but the lives of others as well. As one respondent admitted, we learn to fail quickly and cheaply. However, even education has its limits. If achieving wealth was only a matter of intelligence, there would be far more millionaires who possess superior IQs and academic honors. But the world is overcrowded with men and women, young and old, who, while in college, stood high in their classes, shoulder to shoulder with the best and brightest. These students were scholars, people to emulate and admire, graduating with honors and distinction. Most likely to succeed was stamped across their files. Yet when it came to the course of life, they failed to make the grade. They couldn't catch on. Relegated to the rear, they've become round pegs in square holes. They've been pushed aside by those who've grasped the big picture and have found life much more understandable. Life is comprised of such contrasts. Surely, here is enough material for 100 sermons. Knowledge alone will not attract wealth. This misunderstanding has been the source of much confusion to those who repeat, knowledge is power. According to the acclaimed author and philosopher Napoleon Hill, knowledge is only potential power. It becomes power if and when it is organized into definite plans of action and directed at a definite end. The most telling question that confronts you in the practical world is, what can you do with what you know? Can you transfer your knowledge into power? Your ability to read your Latin diploma is not a true test of your education. A stuffed memory does not make an educated man or woman. Knowledge that can be utilized, that can be transferred into power, constitutes the only education worthy of the name. Ironically, the most prized possession that you can carry from your alma mater is not your degree. No, it is something infinitely more sacred, of greater value. It is your aroused ambition, your discovery of your unique gifts and limitless possibilities. There's a huge difference between absorbing knowledge and transmuting that information into working capital and power. In short, knowledge only becomes powerful if and when it is applied. So, if it is an education that you desire, when you find it, apply it as Alice Walker applied hers. The words acclaimed novelist may not be attached to her name today if she had not convinced friends and neighbors in her rural Georgia community to purchase her bus ticket to Spelman College. Apply your schooling as Sean Puffy Combs applied his. Hip, hopeful, and refusing to be tied to any outdated modes of operating, while a student at Howard University, Combs allegedly wrote and hawked term papers across the campus to make ends meet. This act alone ensured that he would one day fill his place as a Grammy Award-winning producer and millionaire businessman. Pursue your education as the billionaire media mogul Oprah Winfrey pursued hers. As a precocious 5-year-old, she insisted on being placed in the first grade. "There's no need for me to attend kindergarten," she pointed out to the Nashville, Tennessee School Board. "I could read it too." After she aced a battery of tests, Nashville administrators were convinced of her academic acumen and reluctantly placed her in the first grade before moving her to the third grade the following year. When asked to list the keys to their success, millionaires rank hard work first, followed by education. Some have confessed that what they absorbed in the classroom was less important than learning how to study and stay disciplined. Granted, though more than 60% of black millionaires hold advanced degrees, many others squeaked through school. Moreover, my research reveals that most black millionaires did not graduate from either high school or college with top honors. Nearly 1/4 in my study failed to finish college at all, and the well-educated can act as foolish as anyone else when it comes to their personal finances. And finally, with regard to the limits of education, over drinks and idle chatter in a downtown Atlanta hotel, one respondent set the record straight. "I've learned long ago," he shared, that sooner or later A students will one day work for B students, and C students will eventually hire B students, and D students, those supposedly slow learners who were continually reprimanded for daydreaming in class, well, buildings have been erected in their honor. Is hard work the key? Are tenacity and hard work the keys to building your fortune? Orison Swett Marden wrote, "The world admires the man or woman who never flinches from unexpected difficulties, who calmly, patiently, and courageously grapples with his or her fate, who dies, if need be, at his or her post." Hard work always commands respect. The challenge that all black millionaires face, whether entrepreneurs, managers, or professionals with large responsibilities, is that their work is never done. Hard work is the quality that sustained A.G. Gaston, the dean of black entrepreneurs, when he was half-starved and thinly clad walking the dusty roads of Alabama, filled with the hopes of selling insurance to a long-neglected black market. When faced with the choice of either buying boots or chasing his dream, he mended his shoes with folded paper and kept pushing. This is what drove Joe Dudley to concoct hair care and beauty products on his kitchen stove during the night and sell his small line door-to-door the following day. At last count, his net worth exceeded $30 million. On his 70th birthday, where most individuals would have retired to enjoy their hard-earned leisure, Dudley shared the secret to his success. "God and work have made me what I am. You would do best to realize that wealth is the offspring of industry. Pay the price, and it is yours." This is what enabled Chris Gardner to make the long, slow trek from homeless to prosperous. Perhaps no one ever battled harder and longer to overcome obstacles that would have stifled the weak. While working in an unpaid internship program at Dean Witter Reynolds, Gardner and his 2-year-old son spent night after night in a church shelter or the bathroom of an area subway station in Oakland, California. Nobody at work had any idea this was going on. Eventually, Gardner earned a position as a stockbroker at the firm, and 2 years later he headed to Bear Stearns, where he became a top earner. In 1987, he launched his own brokerage shop, Gardner Rich, in Chicago. Today, this multimillionaire is a best-selling author, philanthropist, and international businessman who is about to establish his own private equity fund that will invest solely in South Africa. His partner in the fund? Nelson Mandela. Not bad for someone who, 6 years prior to building his company, was fighting, scratching, and crawling my way out of the gutter with a baby on my back. There are few unlikely ways to attain your millions. You could win the lottery, inherit a windfall, or, as in the case of Stormy Wellington, sell hope. Prior to her 30th birthday, this down-on-her-luck single mother of 2 small children owed thousands more than she possessed. Undeterred, Wellington put grit in place of her foreclosed home. Within 6 months, the former corporate account representative increased her earnings from $7,500 a month to more than $1 million per year, promoting a slew of products manufactured by Artis International, a Mexican-based direct sales company. And Wellington is happy to spread the wealth. With Body Magic, the firm's flagship undergarment that promises to corral excess body fat, her team of distributors set monthly sales records that few in the company or industry have yet to reach. Simply put, work is more enjoyable when you are pursuing your own financial self-interest. Ideally, work should represent opportunity, not obligation. Here lies the reason that so many black millionaires in this study say they feel different about Sunday evening than far too many have-nots. Salaried workers are likely to mourn the start of the new business week while the wealthy embrace it. Many even feel an itch as early as Sunday morning, feeling a mild anxiety to get the week underway. T.D. Jakes completely broke down the first time he was asked to speak before a congregation. Lacking any resources, he continued to push his way up through the masses until he stood poised on the top rung of spiritual and social power. Jakes, who at one time was scoffed, ridiculed, mocked, and told he would never make it in the ministry because he had such a heavy lisp, tells us that no one wins by accident. "I know what it is like to be broke," He recounts, "I know what it is like to be laughed at and scorned. I know what it's like to clean toilets while envisioning Sunday sermons." Jake's own journey began in Charleston, West Virginia, where his mother taught school and his father ran a janitorial business. But times were tough. To help make ends meet, Jakes sold vegetables, managed a paper route, and even dropped off beauty products door to door for his mother's Avon business. He left high school early but later returned to earn a GED. Jakes knew early on that he was called to the ministry. While growing up, acquaintances remember the young boy preaching alone in his family's living room, loudly enough that he could be heard throughout the neighborhood. In 1979, he founded the Greater Emmanuel Temple of Faith with a congregation of 10. Nearly 20 years later, he raised the bar by moving to Dallas, Texas, where he built the Potter's House, a 27,000-member, $45 million, 191,000-square-foot megachurch. "My critics weren't altogether wrong," he shared with me after a Sunday service. "There is a lisp, but whether I had to stutter, stammer, spit, or choke, I had something to say and I was going to say it. Victories that are easy are cheap. Millionaires have found no royal road to their triumph and fortune. It is always the same old route, by way of tenacity, industry, and hard work." Like IQ and knowledge, hard work has its limits. The millionaires in this survey share an almost unanimous belief in the virtue of hard work. Nearly 7 out of 10 respondents agreed with this statement. Anyone can become a millionaire if he or she works hard enough. The millionaires in my sample work on average 60 to 65 hours per week, a far cry from the 35 to 40-hour work week, according to the Census Bureau, of the average U.S. employee. Furthermore, the average workday for millionaires is far more likely to spill over into nights and weekends. Their days begin at 5 a.m. and end at 11:30 p.m. Millionaires are 5 times more likely to say they are always available for business by email or phone, and 3 times more likely to admit that they regularly work evenings and weekends. Moreover, the majority have taken less than 3 weeks vacation in the past year. When long hours and work are the price of realizing opportunities, truly successful people seem more finely attuned than others to the value and finite nature of time itself. Maximizing its value is the true challenge. Some of us have been led to believe blindly that if we keep at it, eventually we will succeed. Unfortunately, this is not always true. Working without a plan is as foolish as going to sea without a compass. Hasn't it been written that the race does not always go to the swift, nor the battle to the strong? You and I can count among our acquaintances those who have worked hard their entire lives with little or nothing to show for it. Mere energy is not enough. All effort must be focused on a steady, overarching vision. What's more common than an unsuccessful genius or impoverished failures with commanding talents? What about contacts, connections, or being in the right place at the right time? You may leave your millions to your son or daughter, but have you really given your children anything worth possessing? You cannot transfer the discipline, the experience, the grit. You cannot transfer the delight of achieving, the joy felt only in growth, the pride of acquisition. The majority of millionaires in this study confess that their greatest satisfaction and most memorable occasion occurred when they emerged from poverty into days of joy, when they felt that their meager savings were growing into multiple streams of income, when they first felt assured that poverty would no longer dog their steps, when they first felt that those whom they loved were being released from the clutch of limit and want, that creature comforts were taking the place of bare necessities, that their children might not be forced to struggle quite as hard. You can pass on your fortune, but you cannot transfer the skill, the prudence, the vision, the passion, and the attention to detail on which your wealth was founded. These qualities may mean a great deal to you, but they may mean nothing to your heirs. As you climbed to your fortune, you developed the muscle, stamina, and strength to succeed in spite of the difficulties to keep your millions intact. You had the power that only comes from experience. You thought it a kindness to deprive yourself in order that your children might begin where you left off. You thought to spare them the tedium and bone-jarring obstacles, the hardships as well as the lack of opportunities. But you have placed a crutch in their hands instead of a staff. You have removed any form of incentive to self-development or self-help without which no real form of wealth creation is possible. As a result, heirs' enthusiasm will evaporate, energy will dissipate, and ambition gradually will fade away. If you do everything for your children and fight their battles, you've done nothing but produce a financial weakling. It has been written that the Lord loves poor people, but he demonstrated a way how not to be poor. Each of us is the architect of our own fate, but we must lay the brick ourselves. What makes these rags to riches stories so compelling? Is it the daring that seems to lie behind each millionaire's decision to chase his or her dream? The apparent willingness of the wealth creator to leap before he or she looks? Is it the amazing determination that the wealthy demonstrate in the face of adversity, setbacks, and catastrophes? The never-say-die attitude that can turn seemingly certain defeat into victory? Is it the quality and value each respondent brings to the marketplace? Is it his or her ability to delay gratification, to forsake today for tomorrow? Or is it the power to start with little or nothing and somehow magically generate products and profits? Something deeper is also at work in the have versus have not transformative process. Wealth creators truly believe in their ability to influence events, in their capacity to direct destiny, and in their power to shape the future. The largest fortunes ever accumulated or possessed were and are the fruit of endeavors that began with little capital save energy, intellect, or faith. In Revelation we read, "He that overcometh, I will give him to sit down with me on my throne." In other words, opposing circumstances create strength. Opposition provides a greater power of resistance. Overcoming one barrier arms us with a greater ability to overcome the next. Wealthy men and women, it has been documented, owe more to their persistence and tenacity than to their natural powers, favorable circumstances, or friends and associates. Take my word for it, intelligence will falter by the side of effort. Great powers will yield to greater industry. Though talent and connections are desirable, nothing will take the place of aim and perseverance. When did you become wealthy? I asked a respondent in this study. I was wealthy when I was dead broke, he replied. I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew I'd do it. It was only a matter of time. I asked Tom Burrell, the founder and CEO of the advertising agency that bears his name, how he and his wife celebrated the moment they broke the 7-figure barrier. The day we realized we were millionaires was a lot like any other day, he replied matter-of-factly. There was no popping of champagne, no trips abroad, and no excessive or extravagant purchases. We simply spent a quiet night at home and roasted hot dogs. Roasted hot dogs? I asked in disbelief. Why hot dogs? Because we remembered all too well the many days and nights we had little or nothing to eat. What about luck? And what about that intangible quality we call luck? There is hardly a word in the English language that has been more cruelly abused than the word luck. Perhaps George S. Clason, the 19th century writer and author of The Richest Man in Babylon, expressed it best. Fickle fate is a vicious goddess who brings no permanent good to anyone. On the contrary, she brings ruin to almost every man upon whom she showers unearned gold. She makes wanton spenders who soon dissipate all they receive and are left beset by overwhelming appetites and desires they have not the ability to gratify. Although I agree our youth should be taught that, sooner or later, circumstances eventually may decide outcomes, that money alone may place unworthy candidates in high positions, and that who you know sometimes outweighs what you know, as this study bears out, fortune smiles on those who roll up their sleeves and place their shoulder to the wheel. Our children should also be taught that diligence is the mother of good luck. That he alone is great who, by a life of heroic, conquers fate. That as a rule, the best individual does win the highest place. This generation should be taught that 9 times out of 10, what others call luck or fate is but a limited belief of the indolent, the indifferent, and those who are less than ambitious. If I were called on to express in a word why so many capable men and women fail in business and in life, lack of luck would never be the prime culprit. Yes, I have observed what appears to be good fortune or luck in people's lives, but actually it is the result of strong habits that are deeply a part of their self-belief and character. Wealth requires more than just luck. Fewer than 2% of the respondents in this study inherited any or all of their fortune. Moreover, research has revealed that those who receive luck-induced wealth far too often fail to retain their windfalls. One study points out that of those who came into their fortune through lotteries, gaming, or chance, more than 80% were bankrupt within 5 years. The fate of those receiving other gifts or gains, such as insurance claims or an inheritance, isn't much better. Bad luck is made to stand as cause and sponsor of all the faults and failures of men and women. Show me a man who, according to popular prejudice, is a victim of bad luck in the world of enterprise, and I will show you someone whose outlook or temperament probably invites disaster. Go speak with the shady businessman who has destroyed his fortune through wild speculation. Go visit with the incarcerated. They will try their best to convince you that they were victims of circumstances. Sit down with the shiftless and lazy and ask why they failed to pull themselves out of poverty. In 6 words or less, they'll say, "I could never catch a break." What is luck? Has any scholar defined it? Has any chemist shown its composition? Has any philosopher explained its nature? Luck is not God's price for success. That would be far too cheap. Luck occurs when preparedness meets opportunity, and opportunity is ever present. Lord, if only the next generation would begin life with the ideal that every statement they utter to be the exact truth, that every promise made be redeemable to the letter, that every appointment be kept with the utmost faithfulness and with full regard and respect for the time of others, that they hold their own reputation as a priceless treasure and feel as if the eyes of the world were on them, that they criticize and condemn no one, that they learn the true estimate of value and self-esteem, that they are not deceived by appearances but place the emphasis of life where it belongs, and that they must not deviate 1 iota from what is upright and true. As the Almighty has made plain, you are rich or poor according to what you've become, not according to what you own. It is not talent or opportunity that our children lack, but the belief that fortune smiles on the pure and determined. Hold true to these ideals, and luck will be a foregone conclusion. Unfortunately, far too many have-nots who have read the compelling story of Bob Johnson, Black Entertainment Television's founder and owner of the National Basketball Association's Charlotte Bobcat team, have gained little inspiration or direction in terms of advancing their lot. For they view Johnson's success as luck, chance, or fate. How lucky can one guy be, they wonder. But luck, as it has been so often noted, played only a minimal role in his story. A full examination of Johnson's life reinforces the same lessons taught by the study of the lives of most of the wealthy. A loving mother, an innate drive that knows no defeat, a definite purpose that never wavers, a concentration that rarely loses its focus, indomitable energy, the identification of a calling, courage that never falters, a love of detail, an upbeat disposition matched only by unbounded enthusiasm, as well as the habit of hard work will always ensure the largest measure of financial success. How the wealthy became wealthy. Who were the greatest money makers of our day? Look no further than a 36 square block area in Tulsa, Oklahoma, known by many as the Black Wall Street. No finer example was ever recorded in the pages of economic history than that of the bold black business owners who dared to utilize meager resources and face back-breaking discrimination to serve a waiting clientele. Despite strife, struggle, ridicule, and an environment that forced them to the rear, these men and women of commerce patiently toiled and created several financial empires. Ironically, so many of my race who constantly dream of some far-off success, who falsely believe they cannot make their mark where they stand, can learn a striking lesson from the black capitalists who endured and, in their enduring, triumphed during the early 1920s. How did they overcome the odds and create wealth? What force rested in their hands? You tell me. Circumstances that others call unfavorable cannot impede the unfolding of your God-given powers. Like their white counterparts, most of Tulsa's black residents arrived in Oklahoma during the late 1890s in the great boom years just before and after statehood. Some came from Mississippi, Missouri, and Georgia. For many, Oklahoma represented not only a chance to escape the oppression of the Deep South and the segregation mandates, but the harsher racial realities of life under Jim Crow. The Sooner State represented a land of hope, a place to sacrifice and build, somewhere to start fresh. They arrived in wagons, on horseback, by train, or on foot. While some of the new settlers flocked to Tulsa, many first settled in smaller communities, many of which were all black or had large black populations throughout the state. If impossibility ever existed, it could have been found somewhere between the birth and death of O.W. Gurley, the son of former slaves. A would-be real estate developer, Gurley never knew when he was defeated. He took his last cent and purchased property in the Greenwood Archer Pine area in 1906, where he immediately sought to build his financial empire. That same year, he built a hotel and grocery store attracting fresh migrants. 4 years later, J.B. Stratford, a lawyer, son of a runaway slave, and Oberlin College graduate, built the 65-room Stratford Hotel, a $2 million facility and one of more than 600 black businesses in the area. In the process, Stratford became the wealthiest business owner on Greenwood Avenue. This 36-block stretch of handsome 1-, 2-, and 3-story red brick buildings housed dozens of black-owned businesses, including grocery stores and meat markets, clothing and dry good concerns, billiard halls, beauty parlors, and barber shops, as well as the Economy Drug Company. The segregated business district known as Black Wall Street featured these enterprises: 30 grocery stores, 21 restaurants, 21 churches, 2 movie theaters, 2 newspapers, 1 bank, 1 hospital, 1 post office, 1 library, 1 bus line, more than 1,200 homes, some of which were so palatial that pictures were often captured on postcards, countless private schools where more than 30 college-educated black teachers in segregated schools taught their young charges, and, lest we forget, 10 millionaires and far too many families with substantial savings to count. Through Guts and Glory, full of riveting tales of isolation and perseverance, nearly a century ago, a small black community managed to do what no other group of African Americans had ever done. Forbidden equal citizenship as well as the basic rights provided to their white neighbors, they were compelled to restrict their exertions to bartering, buying and selling, and to the accumulation of wealth in every possible way. Collectively, they spared no pains and considered no task too great in pursuit of their goals. These hardy souls were not easily discouraged. As a result, they became the inventors of letters of credit, bills of exchange, and basic financial and accounting methods. Having been shut out of other careers and forced to devote their entire energies to organizing their capital, they acquired a genius for the acquisition of wealth. They amassed millions when others settled for thousands. They grew rich when others lived day to day. In short, they became the wealthiest blacks of their era. What is the greatest skill a millionaire can possess? If it is not luck, intelligence, contacts, or connections, talent, persistence, or hard work, what is the magic ingredient? The extraordinary principle that is required prior to joining the ranks of those 35,000 African Americans who've attained millionaire status. As I shared during my presentations, I decided to write this book for 2 main reasons. The The first reason is that I sincerely believe that each of us has an innate responsibility to share those ideals and values that produce positive results, not only in our own life, but the lives of others. Years ago, I started seeking highly successful men and women who were generous with their time and who openly shared the belief system and philosophy that empowered them to reach their full potential. As I adopted these attitudes and disciplines and made them a consistent part of my life, I began to experience extraordinary results too. Each of us has a song to sing, and the wealth choice is part of my song. Whether teaching these principles or interacting with my readers, I experience a strong sense of purpose whenever the topic revolves around wealth creation and prosperity. So, in short, to whom much has been given, much is required. Second, countless books have been written on every facet of financial success. Why did I feel compelled to add to this seemingly endless stream? Frankly, each book I've read revealed a different aspect regarding the art of financial fulfillment. Remarkably, all too often it is the smallest detail or distinction that spells the difference between success and failure, or in this case, haves and have-nots. Ironically, an unassuming writer can share thoughts on a difficult subject in a manner that literally flips a switch in a reader's mind and alters his or her life forever. It is my hope that I am that writer. Who knows where this book will be decades from now? The ideas that I am about to discuss will never change. These ideals are built on natural law. Regardless of whose hands this audiobook falls into or whose eyes glance over these words a century from now, this simple volume will still serve its purpose. So it is with a deep sense of faith and responsibility that I offer my thoughts. We live in a strange and fast-moving world. Each day a new and different voice is heard preaching his or her brand of happiness and financial attainment. As you digest the next story, I suggest that you take good notes. This example will provide the key that will unlock the door to your hopes of financial empowerment. We lived in poverty, but poverty never lived in us. Everyone has a story to tell. Few stories, however, prove to be as profound and inspirational as Ken Brown's. This restaurateur is a messenger of hope who inspires others to rely on their faith, integrity, and discipline as they search for the strength to withstand the most difficult times. As a child growing up in inner-city Chicago, Brown knows firsthand what it means to lose everything, including the house you call home. His family faced financial hardship during a harrowing period in which they were evicted 10 times, twice in 1 year, and added to the city's welfare rolls. In spite of it all, Brown's parents, who had 5 children under the age of 8 while still in their teens, passed on a message of hope. His young father worked as a chef at Chicago's trendy Hyde Park Hilton Hotel, and he stressed the importance of commitment and a solid work ethic. His personal lack of a formal education shaped a dream where, somehow, someway, his children would earn a college degree and forge their own way. "I'm the product of 2 teenage parents," Brown told me as we dined in a Detroit hotel. Together, they drilled that a sense of belief is the roadmap out of poverty. Though I've heard parents tell their children, "You were an accident," or "You'll never amount to much," there was no such negativity in our home. Sometimes we lacked the bare necessities, food, shelter, and clothing. One Christmas morning, our neighbor allowed us to run an extension cord through her kitchen window in order that my mother could prepare breakfast on a hot plate. Nonetheless, my parents never wavered in their faith. My childhood was infused with positive confession. Clutching our coat collars against our necks to keep warm, my mother would state, "This is not the end. There's a reason why you were born. God has something bigger planned for your life." Through their words and deeds, Brown's mother and father immersed their children in a living testimony that professed that anyone can achieve his dream in spite of humble beginnings, if only he defines his purpose and places his faith in the Almighty. The importance of hope grew even as the Browns' financial condition continued to crumble. I'll never forget the day that I arrived home from school and I saw all of our belongings thrown in the street. I was beyond embarrassed. I tried to come to terms with our poverty, but I couldn't. How my parents scrounged up enough money to find another place, I will never know. Though I wasn't fully aware of our dilemma, I knew we were losing ground financially. It seemed as if we were always behind on the rent and utilities, not to mention there was never enough to eat. One night, in the middle of dinner, our kitchen lights began to flicker. We didn't know what was going on. Moments later, the room went dark. The electric company cut off our power. I glanced out the window and peered at our neighbor's home. The lights from their living room could be seen through our curtains. It was at this point that my mother confessed that she hadn't made utility payments in 3 months. As we sat in the dark picking at our food, I was too worn out to cry. I shook my head and questioned what would be next. That was the lowest point in my life. It was at this fork in the road that Brown was taught a life-changing lesson. His mother, trying her best to free and shelter her children from the seductive nature and vice-like grip of poverty, instructed social workers in the Department of Family and Children's Services to close her case and stop sending additional welfare checks. Brown remembers this bold move. In spite of our instability, she said, "I will not allow my children to develop a welfare mentality." Without 2 nickels to rub together, my mother still held to her standards. Brown's mother understood and internalized a key element of wealth that, even today, many fail to grasp. She knew that wealth is not now, nor has it ever been, tied to the physical assets we see, seek, or desire, but to the vast untapped potential of creative thinking. She knew the strongest force known to humankind. This woman was more than aware of the power that can carry each of us from the deepest depths of poverty to the highest ranks of prosperity, from lack, ridicule, and humiliation to wealth, respect, and influence. Brown's mother was conscious of the power that turns stumbling blocks into stepping stones. She knew of the source that has been known to propel humanity from the slums and ghettos of the world to the grandest level of grace, grandeur, and distinction. She knew that each of us is the architect of our own future, and now she was about to share this idea with her son. How to win the war on poverty. The greatest fallacy known to humanity is the necessity of poverty. Far too many have succumbed to the erroneous notion that some of us are destined to be rich while others, conversely, are preordained to be poor. Nothing could be further from the truth. Poverty, want, or lack has never commanded a place in the Creator's plan for humanity. The Almighty never placed the vast multitudes on earth in order that we, you and I, haggle over a limited supply. There need not be a poor person on the planet. The earth is replete with resources that we have yet to tap. As a result, we grow comfortable with our lack in the midst of prosperity and opportunity. Financial riches are lying everywhere, waiting for the observant to discover them. Wealth begins in the mind, and those who are hostile to it will never possess it. Seated on the edge of his bed, Brown's mother shared her impressions and knowledge of wealth and poverty. Though life as a have-not was all she had ever known, she told her son that wealth would forever elude his grasp until he came to grips with the root cause of poverty. She admonished her son to incorporate the following thoughts into his spirit. Be an optimist. Seize the moment. Live today to the fullest. Whatever good you desire is yours, but you must stretch forth your hand and take it. Success occurs by choice, not chance. Life has no limits except the boundaries that you set. We've been blessed by a mighty God who has a gentle heart. If this were not so, you and I would have been gone a long time ago. Blessings occur each and every day in ways that we rarely notice. God exists within each of us. We all share a common humanity. Love yourself, whatever faults you possess, and love the world, no matter how bad it seems. Be grateful not for the hardship, but for the character it built in you. Every challenge provides you with the opportunity to rise above your circumstances. Each of us is far richer than we realize. You and I are better than we've ever dreamed. Manhood can never be given, only earned. Your greatest strength is the power of your example. Prayer, the language of the heart, is the center of a humble life. Fear not. Never stop believing. Never stop dreaming. Remember, He is our eyes when we cannot see, our voice when we are unable to speak, and our faith when we need it expressed. Haven't we worshipped the God of poverty and scarcity long enough? You must decide that you will not be poor. There is no philosophy that will help a man to succeed when he always doubts his ability to do so. There are multitudes of poor people in this country who have grown satisfied and comfortable to remain impoverished, and who have ceased to mount any assault to rise above their conditions. They may work hard, but mentally they have lost the hope, the edge, the expectation that will remove the bars that stand between them and their financial blessing. You will reach the direction in which you face. If you look toward poverty, toward lack, you will rest squarely in its grip. Abundance is your destiny. Rid yourself of the poverty mentality. Money goes wherever it is welcomed. Decide that you will be a good steward of the money you possess, and as a result, more money will be added unto you. Considering his family's plight, Brown listened intently. His mother's words did more than ignite a spark. Her preaching lit a fire. It then dawned on Brown that there was a way to end the continuous cycle of financial hardship for his family. Now on a mission, Brown set a goal to finish school and, of all things, go to college before returning home to launch a business and provide the type of stability his family sorely needed. A recruiter from Southern Illinois University, SIU, saw something in Brown, who was long on commitment but short on grades, and slotted him for a special admissions program contingent that he earn at least a B average his freshman year. Although he arrived on campus with only $25 and a wicker chair, Brown couldn't care less. Eager to leave his past behind, he gazed at the broad Gothic buildings in a daze. Under normal circumstances, he shared, I wasn't supposed to be there. I was a child of teenage, out-of-wedlock parents. I was a welfare recipient, an inner-city nomad. But thanks to my mother's counsel, I was determined to prove my worth. By the time May rolled around, I finished my first year with a 3.15 grade point average, and SIU accepted me into general admissions. Opportunity comes knocking. 4 years later, Brown graduated with a degree in food and nutrition, an ambition to own his own restaurant, and the first step to realizing that goal, a full-time position with a blue-chip food service company. But moonlighting as a waiter at a local Chicago bistro provided the keys to his future. A chance meeting in the late 1990s with a high-ranking executive eventually changed his life. Edie Waddell and her husband were regular customers at the upscale restaurant, and Brown had served them often. They were impressed with his professionalism as well as his attention to detail. After dinner one evening, Brown presented her husband the check, and Waddell in turn offered her business card. You're the type of individual we want at McDonald's, she explained. All I ask is for your trust. Waddell was swiftly climbing the corporate ladder with the fast food giant. Her timing couldn't have been better. Through previous conversations, she knew of Brown's desire to own a restaurant. After his initial training at McDonald's corporate headquarters, she suggested that he take over one of McDonald's corporate stores. Despite its location in the Chicago suburbs, the store underperformed. The current manager offered every excuse in the book for its soft bottom line, but Brown knew better. Intensely driven, within the first 2 weeks, Brown sat down with every employee and asked for his or her input. After implementing a few of their suggestions, he made other subtle changes. He purchased new uniforms for his crew and insisted that everything be in tip-top condition. Restrooms would be clean and tidy, windows would be spotless, counters would sparkle, and the surrounding lawn and flowers would bloom. In the dining room, 2 antiquated televisions hung from the ceiling. Not only were they inoperable, they were eyesores. Brown replaced them with state-of-the-art flat screens. Also, an old magazine rack sat empty in the lobby. Instead of hanging magazines and newspapers, he bought a throw rug and beanbag chairs from a local Walmart and transformed the space into a children's reading area. As a result, sales soared, customer service improved, and his team took pride in their work. In short order, the franchise came to life. At a minimum, his staff knew they were led by a manager who preferred human service over customer service. Brown not only demanded performance, but he quickly became known as someone who rolled up his sleeves and worked side by side with his employees. Opportunities flew Brown's way. 6 months later, Waddell was promoted to director of the entire Michigan region, and it wasn't long before she contacted Brown with the offer of a lifetime. At age 35, Brown obtained a loan through Fleet Bank of Boston to consummate the deal that brought his dream to fruition, becoming the youngest owner-operator in the history of the franchise. Waddell invited me to fly to Detroit and select 2 stores, he recalls. As I look back at every position that I held, whether it be Aramark, Wendy's, Marriott, Lorenzo's Bistro, or even McDonald's, I considered each opportunity as a paid internship. Each challenge created character, contacts, and relationships. Regardless of the roadblock, you can't focus on what you are going through, only what you are going to do. His inauspicious start in life might have discouraged most people, but not Ken Brown. His welfare to faring well story rivals the best that Hollywood has to offer, ending with a man so passionate about his life's mission that he dives into storytelling and seldom comes up for air. He is excited, and understandably so. It is Brown's hope to use his portfolio, which now includes both restaurants and hotels, to make a difference. By sharing his guiding principles, Brown hopes to spread his formula for wealth creation to all those who will listen. The starting point to all growth and development rests with a decision. The decision that you make can alter the course of your life forever. New rules of money. The law that guides the thinking of the rich. In his own words, you have witnessed one man's legacy, a roadmap for the suffering as well as the successful to reach those places within the soul that gives life meaning. Here is one individual's overarching testimony that would give anyone pause, and it all began by mastering the greatest skill. Do you wish to become wealthy in one generation? If so, you will be forced to nurture the courage to make a decision that, sooner or later, all millionaires have reached. The reason that so few of us are financially independent is due in part to the negative mental roadblocks that have been placed in our minds. I suggest that you hold fast to the second law of wealth. Decide now that you will not be poor. The conviction that we are poor and must remain so is fatal to humanity. As long as we envision despair, we shall never arrive at the gates of delight. As long as our state of mind anticipates hard luck, reconciles misfortune, broods over shortcomings, and dwells on lowly conditions while minimizing all that is divine, penny-pinching and tough times will follow as surely as an architect's blueprint precedes the foundation. The Winfreys, the McFarlands, the Browns, and the Robertses think wealth, and they get it. When you make up your mind that you are done with poverty forever, that you will not entertain a single unproductive thought, that you are going to erase every trace of this debilitating disease from your dress, your appearance, your demeanor, your decorum, your speech, your actions, your home, that you are going to show the world your true mettle, that you will no longer conduct your affairs in an apologetic, stooping, slipshod manner, as if you lacked confidence or ability, that you will adhere to the words of the Master who admonished us to turn the other cheek and squarely and persistently face a life of plenty, power, prayer, and untold riches. Here lies the very heart of a wealth consciousness, the conversion process. This outlook converts spenders into savers, the non-banked or unbanked into banking customers, renters into homeowners, entrepreneurial hopefuls into business owners, and the economically uneducated into the financially literate. This outlook helps people help themselves and creates wealth in the process. Before you can become a millionaire, you must learn to think like one. You must decide. And it need not take 10 years to make the leap. Those individuals who have left their mark on the world of wealth and commerce have been men and women who possess the ability to render prompt decisions. Nothing will provide greater confidence than the reputation of promptness. The individual who is trapped by indecision, ever juggling two opinions, forever debating which course to pursue, cannot control him or herself, let alone his or her financial future. In contrast, the man or woman of prompt and calculated decision does not wait for favorable circumstances. To hesitate is to be lost. In fact, those who are forever shuffling and procrastinating, weighing and balancing will never rise above minimum wage. No, it need not require a lifetime in order to make the leap. Throughout my focus groups, millionaires who transitioned from paycheck to paycheck to a life of affluence replied that the process took less than 5 years. Furthermore, shifting from affluence to a 7-figure income on average required an additional 3 to 4 years. However, clearing the big leap, jumping from a weekly paycheck to millionaireship, demanded 9 to 10 years of focus, effort, grit, and determination. And yes, you, the listener, must choose to make this change. In all likelihood, this task is similar to the diet you've scheduled to start, the marathon you hope to run, the poor habits you plan to break, and the money you wish to save. Here lies a choice that you must confront each day. If you are driven to reach your financial potential, you must expand your wealth consciousness and belief system and assume the part it demands. You must decide that poverty has no place within your life. No one can achieve prosperity while, in the still moments, envisioning poverty. It's up to you, the listener, to decide whether you will conquer poverty once and for all. The road to abundance does not lie on private property. Anyone who chooses can walk it. Prosperity begins in the mind but ends in the purse. Millionaire lesson number 2. Abundance is your destiny. Rid yourself of the poverty mentality. Money goes wherever it's welcomed. Decide that you will be a good steward of the money you possess. As a result, more money will be added unto you.